This is what the aftermath of FML looks like.
Where's the easy button?
Today's episode of In the Cave with Valley Rally Enduro is brought to you by Beta Canada, our number one choice when it comes to riding the best enduro bikes on the market today. Go to betacanada.net or your local Beta dealer to check out the latest 2022 models. Ride, race, live, Beta. It's all good in the woods. This episode is also brought to you by Sunny Hill Resort, located on the shores of beautiful Bark Lake in Barry's Bay, Ontario. Family-oriented and moto-friendly, Sunny Hill is Ontario's #1 vacation destination and boasts a full range of great amenities such as fully equipped waterfront cottages, full-service campsites, and year-round ride-in, ride-out access for dirt bikes, motorcycles, and snowmobiles. Go to sunnyhillresort.com for full pricing and availability. This episode is also brought to you by Lang's Offroad. If you are at all into enduro or trials riding here in Ontario, then you are no doubt familiar with Lang's Offroad. They are one of, if not the only, dedicated enduro and trial shop in the province, and they know their stuff. If you are in the Southern Ontario region and are an enduro or trials enthusiast like us, then you would be doing yourself a disservice by not checking out Lang's Off-Road for your moto needs. Dude, we're here again.
Oh my God. It feels like we just did this last weekend.
Yeah.
We did.
So tonight we're going to talk about Everything ADV.
Yeah, that's a new one for us.
Yep. It's kind of our origin story in a way. We were both on ADV bikes at that time. You were on your V-Strom 1000.
Mm-hmm.
I was on my 450, but I also had at the time an ADV bike as well. I think I was on the 690.
No, that was before your 690. I think your 450 was between your 990 and your 690.
Yeah.
Was it not?
Yeah, I think you might be right.
Yeah, but you had your 450 set up a little bit more ADV than
Yeah,
you
I had
would.
like a 24 liter tank.
You're
and,
big. Yeah.
It was meant to go distances.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we love ADV bikes.
Mm-hmm.
We love the whole concept of ADV riding in general, even though we're enduro heads right now.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think a lot of people don't know that about us.
No, I don't think they do.
Yeah. All our events that we've done so far is small bikes, enduro, but we definitely have that side of off the event stuff. And for me personally, having a big bike is my therapy from work, and I keep that. I've never not had a big bike, just for that reason.
For me, I kind of started on big bikes. I think my first bike was a 600, and then it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then it got smaller and smaller and smaller. But I have my 1090, which is wicked. It's a wicked bike. We swept Dacre bronze class.
We did.
On those this year.
Mm-hmm.
And if folks tuned in to the last episode where we talked about OVR and the origins of Darren Rideout, he was one of our OGs. The concept of the first OVR was more ADV than it was enduro. It was kind of a hybrid.
Yeah, I guess it was.
But we were legitimately doing a long distance trip on bikes, and some of them were enduro, but some of them were like bigger bikes like DR 650s, 690s, that sort of thing. So that's kind of where we come from. So we figured, what the hell, why don't we talk about all things ADV, because we love that shit. And maybe we're planning a big trip later on. I don't know.
Maybe not. We haven't talked to the wives yet.
Yeah.
Well,
we
we've
have
thrown it out there.
Yeah, we're playing around.
Yeah, it's planted. The seed is planted.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a bit later.
Right.
So you had your V-Strom 1000.
Yeah, when we met, I actually street biked forever, and I think the last strictly street bike I had was a Concourse 1400, a newer version of them, and it was a nice bike. And
I don't even know what that is.
It's a Kawasaki Concourse 1400 cc.
So like a
green Harley Davidson? Like, what is that?
Not even close. It's like a sport bike with that's been working out for 10 years.
Oh, okay.
It's like that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. It was a great bike, and it served its purpose at the time. But there was an ad on Kijiji saying, looking to trade my Suzuki V-Strom for a Kawasaki Concourse. So
It's weird that you had one.
it is very weird. And I was at the time where I was thinking about getting out of it. So
Cool.
so I contacted the guy, and he was from, I think, the Ottawa area or something. And we met. He came up to Sunny Hill and took a look at my bike, took it for a spin, and I took his for a ride, and we agreed right there. Like, yeah, we'll swap it out. And I had no idea how that was going to work. How do you register a bike that you've traded?
Yeah.
Even I had no idea. So
So how did that work? Out of curiosity.
well, I talked to the girl in Killaloe at the MTO, and she said basically you just need any amount on it. Doesn't matter if it's a trade, but there's no list. There's no blacklist. So I just said I paid $750 for it. Is what I paid.
Yeah.
And it all flew. There was a little bit of money transferred back and forth because I think my bike needed new tires, and so I gave him some money to buy tires. But anyway, so we swapped, and I at the time it had street tires on it, and never been off road. So that was my introduction to a V-Strom 1000, and actually Joe
Enberg, yeah.
Enberg, he came up here with, I think it was Ryan Carmen and a few other guys,
Right.
and he had a V-Strom, and I mentioned to him, I said, hey, I just picked this bike up. What is it like? And he said, oh my God, you're gonna love it. So I didn't at first, I rode it for a bit, and it was a great bike, but I didn't love it. And then the more I rode it, the more I really liked it. And I did a few things to it, but very minor, as you remember.
Yeah.
There was no skid plate. I didn't do anything. I put a back tire on it, which was maybe the wrong back tire.
Well, it was better than probably what you bought it with.
Absolutely. It was a street tire.
Yeah.
And the first ride I ever did, and I think before I even put that back tire on, I went over to the ZEC, which is across from Deep River or Chalk River area.
Yeah.
And I crossed the border into Quebec, and I stopped. There's a little booth, and you pay $20 to go ride across into the ZEC. And for people that don't know what the ZEC is, it's basically a provincial park on the Quebec side. So I paid my $20, and
Except you're allowed to ride through them.
Yeah, which was really good.
Because in Ontario, you're not allowed to ride through them.
Mind you, the girl that was at the gate, she's like, no, you can't ride motorcycles through here. It's not for motorcycles. I've already turned 3 people around today. Don't ride a motorcycle.
But it was more of a suggestion.
It was a suggestion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't. I couldn't do it. She's like, no. These are very sandy dirt roads, and it's a long way through. So I had a full tank of fuel, and it was early in the day, and I said, just please let me go through. And she goes, okay, well, please buy this map for it's $4, and it'll show you where to go, but do not go on this one road. We haven't checked it yet this year, and
Yeah.
so. Anyway, so I took off, and I ended up riding through and had a great time. It was actually 6 hours of riding without seeing anybody through the
That's awesome.
ZAC to Temiskaming.
Temiskaming,
Yeah. And that was when I got to the other side and I saw, people again. That was when I realized I'm hooked on this adventure bike stuff.
Yeah, right on. Man.
That was a great
Yeah.
start to it.
So how did you have to ride back, or did you take the road back?
No, I ended up taking a few days. I stayed where did I stay? Somewhere near North Bay that night I got to, and then I rode and I did a loop, and I came back a different way, but it was the idea of going through the ZEC. And actually the idea didn't come to me except for that morning. There was an event that happened here at Sunny Hill that I just wanted to get away from.
Yeah.
There was a bit of a dark bit. So I thought, you know what, I looked at a map and I thought, okay, that I can ride through that. And there's a track. So I rode through and I made a little bit of a loop, and not realizing that going through that way was going to be that eye opener for me, that this adventure off-road stuff was good fun.
Yeah. Well, and so folks, we may have mentioned this in a previous episode, but you used to do, like motorcycle touring maps of like pretty much this area that we're in now.
Yep.
So, I mean, you kind of have a really good idea of a lot of the back roads.
I do, yeah.
In this neck of the woods, which, you know, I mean, plenty of ADV riders actually ride those routes.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
and I solely, I stuck to paved roads at the time. I didn't,
right.
I'd never been off-roading before. I didn't know. And the market that I was going to at the time was your average rider, you know, street bike rider.
Yeah.
So it wasn't ADV stuff.
But
that is.
But the back roads in this area are like,
oh, they're phenomenal.
you know, like, yeah, okay, you can ride dirt all day long, but when you get on the twisties, whether you're on an ADV bike or a sport bike, I mean, it's still awesome.
Yeah. Me and you, our first experience riding together.
Yeah.
We did a bunch of back road stuff, and then we got on Old Barry's Bay Road, and we hammered that thing out.
That was a session.
It was a session.
Yeah. I don't think my 450 has ever been that fast in its life.
Or ever again
Or
after.
ever again. That was awesome.
A spirited ride.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So on my side of the fence, I came into bikes on the street bike side, like, you know, very much like yourself. But there was that kind of pedigree, if you will, from being a kid and being around, you know, cousins and friends who always had, like, you know, a 50 or 150 cc dirt bike kicking around, you know, flip-flops and shorts and no helmet, just ripping down the back roads of the cottages and whatnot. So rode street bikes for a number of years. And then when we came back from Italy, I'd brought back my road bikes, and I had a pair of Ducatis. I had the 748 and 996 SBS, and they're both amazing motorcycles. The 996 SBS is an absolute monster. It's a phenomenal motorcycle, but it belongs on a track, right? And you know, Ryan Carmen, who you mentioned earlier, a good buddy of mine, known him since I was a kid, and I think, what was he on at the time? He was on his KLR. So he had a bunch of KLR buddies, and, you know, we would ride together. He also had, it was a Suzuki Banshee. Is that right?
The quad?
No, so it wasn't a Banshee. It was something else. It was like a 650 kind of sport touring bike ish type of thing.
Bandit, probably.
Bandit, yeah. And so we would go riding on the 996 every once in a while, and he's like, hey, man, you know what? Like, you should really ditch this thing because you already have the 748. You need to get yourself like a dual sport bike, like an adventure bike. And I was like, I've always been a Dakar fan, and I was like, yeah, you know, you're right. Anyways, long story short, I ended up getting rid of trading the 996 in for 2010 990 Adventure KTM. And
good bike.
Oh man, I love that bike. It was wicked. But the hilarious thing was I showed up with that thing. I'm like, Ryan, I got an adventure bike. He's like, what'd you get? I got a KTM 990 Adventure. He's like, it's going to break down. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, it's a KTM, dude. Like, they're going to break down. And I'm like, what? Well, what bike should I have gotten? Well, you should have got a KLR, man. That's what we're all riding. And I kind of went, I don't know.
Yeah.
But, you know, the KLRs are capable motorcycles.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yep.
Like, I'll be honest, if, you know, all this shit in the Ukraine goes south and nukes start dropping and I have to pick a bike to get the fuck out of Dodge, KLR's not a bad bet, man. Nope. I mean, it'll get you there.
Yep.
Anyways, so I enjoyed my 990. I really enjoyed it. Started riding that thing pretty much as a novice. Like, I didn't know anything about off-road riding at the time. And through riding with Ryan, that's how I met you, right? So he came up here with his buddies, and then subsequently I started having ideas about Valley Rally, and he's like, hey man, you need to go talk to Jason Milne up in Sunny Hill. So anyways, we started riding together. I don't think I had my 990 at the time anymore.
No, 450 when I met you.
Yeah, so I had, for those who don't know yet, I'm a bikeaholic.
You are.
So I had gone from my 990, I went to a 640, which is horrible. I don't recommend that motorcycle at all. And then I went to the 450, and then that's when me and you started riding together. And I don't know, like the ADV thing was, I got into off-road riding kind of more heavily along with Ryan Carmen. through roaming rally events.
Right.
And speaking of roaming
Right.
rally events, they're back on now.
I saw that.
For those of you who know what roaming rally is, they've kind of had a hiatus for the past 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
They're back on now. So I think the last weekend of May, is it May 2-4 weekend?
Yeah, I think it is.
They're holding their event. So if you're jonesing for some roaming
And
rally
it's legit.
action,
It's a good.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed roaming rally events. Jimmy and the guys who run that are stellar, and they're amazing riders. So yeah, those guys, we started doing their events, and I just, it is an adventure, and it's kind of what adventure riding is about, which is cool. And so we, that's where our roots come from.
Yep.
And all that, and of course, watching the Charlie and Ewan stuff, and Lyndon Poskett, and all that jazz. Like, huge fans of all that stuff.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit. I don't want to say the word, but it sounds definitely. What am I trying to say?
Say the word. I can edit it out.
I can't think of it. Edit that part out. But it's true. When I watched The Long Way Around, it was the same thing. I watched that and went, "Oh my God, I had no idea you can do that on a bike."
Yeah.
And so that really got me excited. And when I got my V-Strum, I felt like I was those guys.
Yeah.
Really, I would take it on back roads for sure to start. And once you get that bike sideways, and it's a big bore bike, it it makes some noise and it shoot some gravel.
So that's good
fun.
So in your mind, what's the attractiveness of that type of motorcycle versus a street bike or versus a dirt bike, it's pretty obvious, I think, between the two of us, but for those listening, what's the attraction?
Well, for me, and you had mentioned it earlier, I used to own a motorcycle magazine called Rider's Quest, and we would go around and find all the great back roads and highways, stuff that was really great on a street bike. And when you get on an adventure bike, it really opens up a whole new world of places you can go. So, you'd be riding along on a street bike and gravel's not your friend,
Right.
and guaranteed down that one road that says Forest or Falls or whatever, there's some great roads down there, and on a street bike the bike I used to ride was a Buell Lightning, or then I had a Kawasaki Z1000, and it's not great on gravel. So to have a bike that worked well on gravel was fantastic. It opened up a whole section of the world that I hadn't been on before.
Yeah.
So for me, that was awesome. And probably the first year I would just, doing the magazine, I spent 3 years looking for all the great back roads and categorizing them. So to have that adventure bike and then be able to spend all that, a full year of riding stuff I've never ridden before, it was like riding all over again. It's brand new to me.
Yeah, I kind of have to echo that one. It definitely opens up things and makes riding brand new again. I kind of felt a very similar thing when I first discovered kind of that genre of riding, if you will. So the 1090, in my opinion, was the perfect machine at the perfect time. So I was getting bored of the sport bikes. Not bored. I mean, what I really loved about my Ducatis was the power, right? I loved the ability to hit the throttle and just go whenever I wanted to. The power was on tap.
Yeah.
And a lot of folks might go, "Oh, that's a little bit reckless," but it gets you out of jams, man. Like if you ride it responsibly, it gets you out of jams. Like if you see a dangerous situation, this is how I ride. Dangerous situation, get the hell out of that dangerous situation as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Blip the throttle. You're out of that little danger zone. You're ahead of it. Life is good again.
Yep.
Whereas if you have a motorcycle that's like a 500cc bike, like a street bike, like your ability to overtake vehicles is very limited.
Yeah.
Especially if you're loaded down. So there's that aspect. That was my,
And who are we lying? We like the thrill.
for sure, man. Like boosting wheelies, like hello.
Yeah.
But anyways, so power was one of my big criteria. So 990 has that on tap. But what blew me away was the handling of that motorcycle. The first place I took that bike off road was Limerick Forest, and it was a completely ignorant thing to do. a buddy of mine who had a Honda CRF 250 was like, hey man, I'm going to Limerick. Why don't you bring your new ADV bike and we'll go ride the trails? And I said, sure, sounds amazing. Let's do it. So I show up and we go. And at this point I had, what did I have on the back? I had the Dunlop 908, that beefy monster, crazy off-road tire that they make. And then I had a like Scorpion. It was like their 50/50 street tire, like sort of gravelly tire.
Right.
But that, like, I dropped the bike twice in Limerick, following a guy on a 250 dirt bike. I was impressed.
Oh, they're capable.
Considering I had zero off-road experience at that time, I was suitably impressed with the handling abilities of this motorcycle. I was like, I'm sold.
Yeah.
And I went from there. I mean, I really got into exploring more off-road areas.
Yeah.
And to your point, you would take these epic back roads, these twisty back roads, and then you'd see like, oh yeah, a hydro line, new world, right?
Yeah.
Opens it up. What? I can ride on this?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Like, this is amazing. And then all of a sudden you're getting more confident. And maybe you're taking, some of these little bumps a little quicker than you were before, and you're catching a little bit of airtime, and it's really fun. And it's like, this is, it's opening up all new worlds. And then, man, it's, that was the big thing for me as well. It was just like and not just that, but it's more comfortable. Yeah. Like so for a long time I owned, through the various adventure bikes that I owned, I also had my street bike still. And as much as I loved that motorcycle, every time I got on it, I was like, oh, fuck.
It hurts.
Like, this is the most uncomfortable thing in the world.
Yeah.
So I've kind of, now I'm an upright guy. Like, I like riding in an upright position. And it was like, I got the power, I got maneuverability. Like, that 990 was as powerful, maybe more, well, it was more powerful than my Ducati.
Yeah.
So my Ducati was topping out at like, I want to say the 748 had 73 horsepower, maybe more. Could be remembering this wrong. The 990 is like 100, 101 or something stupid like that. Like, it's a fast motorcycle.
It is.
And I mean, they're faster now, but back then, I mean, like, it was legit.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, I'm good. Like, this is amazing.
I definitely classify the 1090 as a street bike in the back country.
Oh, for sure, man.
The power that they have. I don't know what they are for horsepower, 125, 130 or something.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah, on a dirt bike, big dirt bike. Yeah, well, getting back to, when the first time me and you rode, and I was on my Suzuki V-Strom, you guys had invited me to go, and I think we've talked about this before on another podcast, but every single one of you guys, so, you met me, you said, hey, come ride with me. And I was over there at whatever time in the morning. Every single one of you guys came out and looked at that bike. Went, there's no way he's making it. There's no way he's doing it. And that was my first time doing serious off-road stuff. Or at that time, serious off-road. We did hydro lines. I think before that, I had done a couple of gravel roads. But I remember you guys all came out, looked, laughed at my tires, and went back in, drank more coffee. And then another guy would come out and do the same. And as the day progressed, so we went out riding and everything was great. And we got on the hydro line and I remember the first time I jumped that bike, and that bike, I don't know if it's really meant to jump, but it will do it. But, it took me by surprise and everybody else that we were riding with, and we got to the end of the trail and they're like, that Pat, he was, are we slowing you down,
Yeah.
But that was a good eye opener, and that was probably what hooked me for sure on the big bikes.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, it's something else when you make a big bike dance like that, and you're like, wow, we can go places.
Yeah, and the V-Strom is a very capable bike for many, many things. I think it struggles a little bit in some of the really technical off-road stuff. But I've once sat on that bike. Me and my dad left Sunny Hill Resort. I had my son here, so I had taken him back to Peterborough. We rode from Sunny Hill to Peterborough, dropped him off, and rode to Montreal that in one shot, and spent the night and got new tires for the bike that night. And it was so capable for that.
Yeah.
You could ride that thing across the country, no problem.
Maybe that's a little bit of a segue into some of the journeys we've made on these bikes, right? So I've traveled a bit and I've done some miles on bikes on different continents. So for me, I have some experience on the Ducati Multistrada, which is, that's an ADV-ish bike. I mean, it's more ADV now than it was back then, I suppose. I mean, it would do it, but you weren't on the 1821 wheel set that most ADV bikes, legit ones, have. But, luggage, full panniers, passenger, traveling around. And so we did north and south of Italy. Got a little funny in the mountains, exploring around and trying to find routes around major roads and shit like that. And then, did a trip out west on the 690. So, I mean, I've got a few trips under my belt. I know you've done some stuff down south, right? Like down in Ecuador.
Yeah, I guess even before I ever had my V-Strom, I was still a street bike guy, and me and Christine, so I guess we're talking 9 years ago, or just about 9 years ago, when we first got together. We had only been together for months, not for very long, and we decided to go to Ecuador for a trip.
So you're basically testing out your new girlfriend. Right.
Yeah. And it was sink or swim at that point.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah, it is. So we went out to Ecuador. We ran into the guys at Freedom. I think they're called Freedom Rental or Freedom Ecuador. And we rented a bike for a week. And we picked up a Suzuki V-Strom 650. And we did 7 days of some of the most amazing back roads, country riding in Ecuador.
Yeah.
And it was a very, very cool trip. The first day we picked up the bike, we were in Quito. We rode to the coast, spent a few days down in a surf village, and then rode that bike from sea level all the way up to, I think we were about 12,000 feet up, and that bike struggled. It was, oh man, it felt like it was a single cylinder. It's very high. And it was high for us. We would park the bike and hike into these little villages. You definitely felt it. And the cool thing about that trip, so we did it double up. I had Christine on the back and all the luggage, and we there one of the days that we were in there, we were riding along, and we had a GPS track of this next village we were going to, and it was all off road. Now we're in there for about almost an hour, and the GPS quits, and I have no idea if we're going the right way. And so we spent, I would think, about 4 or 5 hours on this one dirt path, passing cows, and we get to the other end of it and finally see some paved roads, and we stop and talk to a local, and they're like, "Oh yeah, keep going, this way." And so we ride to a gas station, and this is probably at 9:00 at night when we finally get through, and we're at this gas station. And the lady, who was from America and spoke very good English, thankfully, she said, "Yeah, you got another hour before you're going to see any hotels." So we trucked down the highway.
So it was like 5 minutes for you.
Yeah, it was. Maybe a little longer because Christine was on the back. But so we trucked down the highway, and we get to this hotel, and prices are cheap in Ecuador, and they were, and I'm sure they still are. But there was one hotel we roll into, and it seemed, oh, this is great. It was, I think it was $10 a night, real cheap. And they had this really cool parking garages. So this guy escorts you in and opens up this big door, and you ride your bike right in, and I'm thinking, this is fantastic. This is safety. And we walk into the bedroom or the room, and there's Barry Manilow playing, there's underglow light on the bed, and there's some spurts thing in the top corner, spraying some cologne,
It was just like Sunny Hill.
It was just like Sunny Hill. Yeah. So it was an interesting night. We slept in different beds and in our own, not at all what that place was meant for. But it was great. And that trip was really, I think that's why I ended up with a V-Strom in the long run. But later on in that trip, we had, wore the front tire, I think front and back tire, down to a V. There was no straight roads, and we had literally wore to the wires. So I called the rental place, and they're like, "Okay, just bring it back. You're not far from here. We'll give you a different bike." So at that point, Christine had said, I'm done. I'm going to go shopping. I'm cool with that. So they give me a Husqvarna 610 or whatever it was. It was like a dual sport.
Yeah.
I'm not sure of the size. And coordinates to a volcano not far out of Quito. So I head out and I rode probably 4 hours through this crazy windy road, dirt road, up and up and up, and kept going. And the guy said, when you're gonna get to this building at the top of the hill, and when you get there, there is a trail behind it, and if the bike will still run because you're way up there now, follow the path and take it up to the summit. And it was 15,000 feet up, like it's way up there. So I'm riding this bike and it's not happy, and it's kind of stormy too. It wasn't the perfect day to be out riding around on a adventure bike. Anyways, I get to this building and there's a dog up there and nobody else. I hadn't seen anybody this whole trip. And so I get up and I get around this building and I get the bike up as far as I possibly can, and it's sputtering, and finally it dies and it won't run anymore. So I park it and I start hiking up and I make it to the summit, and it is a hike. I don't know if you've ever been that high or.
Yeah, the highest I've ever been is about 16 and a half. Yeah, just below 17,000.
It's hard.
It is hard.
And especially when you're not accustomed to it. It was. Yeah. So I hiked up and I took this really aggressive video about me making it, and then when I got back down to the bike, it wouldn't start. So I had to coast down probably 1.5 kilometers.
Oh, wow.
Before it would actually start and get enough oxygen and fire up. And finally I got it riding and it went down. And looking back, like at the time, I'm thinking that was stupid. But looking back, that was one of the best things I've ever done.
That's adventure.
That's an absolute adventure. Yeah. And I love that stuff.
Yeah. So when we were living in Italy, we, like I was mentioning, we rented a multistrada. So there's bike rental agencies are pretty common in Italy. And our first trip was the south of Italy. So the area south of Rome down to the tip of the boot type of thing. And we were looking at what would be a suitable bike and, two-up friendly type of thing. And for the life of me, I look back on this now and I'm like, how was that even an option? But we were looking at a Triumph Bonneville as the bike of choice for this trip.
Yeah.
And for some reason,
great bike.
Well,
but not necessarily for
not
that
for
purpose.
what we were thinking of. Like, it just would not have been cool.
Yeah.
But we, I had this, I had an eye on the multistrada. I'm like, ooh, that's sexy. And anyways, I talked Sandra into it. She was totally down, and so we rented that, and it was a good thing. I'm convinced that choice saved our life on that trip,
and probably marriage.
Yeah, probably. So we took the main highway, the Autostrada, out of Rome to go south towards Naples, and we'd been down that way before, and the Autostrada is a great road, but this day it was super windy, really sunny and beautiful, but just windy. And Sandra's, especially on the back of that bike, she's like probably a foot taller than me on that bike, and so she's getting buffeted pretty good. So she's like, "Hey man, can we pull over?" So we pull over, and she's like, "Look, this ride sucks. Is there another road we could take?" And so I was like, I don't know, like maybe. So our kind of itinerary was we were going to go down to Sorrento, which is just outside of Naples, and then from there we were going to go to a place called Matera. So if anyone's seen the latest James Bond movie, there's like the beginning of the movie, he's kind of in this.
That's where I recognize you from.
Italian, yeah. That's me. I was in the stunt double. There's this scene where he's it's like this Italian village. That's Matera. So it's famous for being a troglodyte city into the 1950s. So people were living in the hills, like in caves, into the 1950s. And what we were going down there for was all the locals that still own those caves. They had turned those caves into like high-end hotel rooms, essentially. And it sounds weird, but I'm telling you, they are amazing.
Really?
They are fucking amazing. Like, just beautiful places. And so anyways, backing up, so that's where we're going. And then from there, we were going to work our way up to back to Salmona, which is about an hour and a half east of Rome. That we have friends that live there. We're going to hang out with them for Easter. That was the trip. So anyways, out of Rome, we pull over, and Sandra's like not feeling the ride. So I was like, okay, pick up a map book, and I still have this map book. It is 1.5 inches thick, full 11 by 10 inches wide. Like, it's this massive map book, full color. Like, it's an amazing map book of the country. All the roads, all of them are in this book. So, in, the absence of a beautiful, Garmin, 610 or whatever, we had this thing. And it also acted as a really great windbreak in Sandra's jacket. So she would keep it in her jacket, and I would just be like, hey man, where are we? And she'd pull it out, and anyway, so we figured out a route. So we figured, okay, we're not too far from the coast, so we'll go up and over these hills, and we'll take the coast road into Naples. Awesome, let's do that. So we go over the hills. It was really great. All the little back roads through there were amazing. You run in all these beautiful old little Italian towns and stuff, and then we'd stop every once in a while, check the map book, and it was just fun. It was great. Then we get on the coast road, and it's like Suicide Alley. It's bananas. Like, it is a single lane road, single lane each way, but there's 3 lanes of traffic going both ways. It was bananas. So we're going down this road, and we're feeling the flow at this point in time. So, keep in mind, I have Sandra on the back, and it's full pannier. It's like 2 on the side, 1 on the top. And we're following this Fiat Punto, which is like a little tiny hatchback. And he's trying to get, he's going a good clip. So we're like, okay, we'll stick with this guy. And there was a bunch of slow traffic up ahead. And he kind of slows down. So I'm like, screw it, man. I'm just going to get around these guys. I know the bike has the power. I'm just going to get out and around. So I put my signal light, and I go. And I just had a feeling. And it was one of those feelings where I'm like, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to keep my head on the swivel just in case. And sure enough, as soon as I pulled out and gunned it, right? So we've gotten up to speed. We're doing about 100K to get up and around all these people. And this asshole just turns left. No signal, just turns left. And he's like, turns left, right in front of us. So, it's perfect T-bone material here. And I'm like, oh, shit. So, just instinct kicks in. I'm like, full binders, brake, as late as possible, and let go, and then maneuver around the back of this bike, or around this car, and then we're out of there. And Sandra doesn't know what the fuck's going on, right? She has no idea. All she sees is this car pulling in front of us, and in my mind, I am following, okay, you do A, and then you do B, and then you do C, and then you survive. Go. And then, but she has no idea any of this is going on. So she's literally freaking out. I can hear her going, oh my God. And as soon as I hit the brakes, her helmet fucking smacks the back of my helmet. And I'm just I'll explain it on the other end, right? So we get to, and after we passed we got out of the danger zone, I pulled over briefly because she was having a total meltdown. And I was like, sure. Just explained everything, and she's like, oh my God, that was so scary. All right, we're going to take it easy. So anyways, we finally make it to Naples. Naples is crazy. There are dudes on street bikes with no helmets or open face helmets. Full face helmets, I found out later, are illegal in Naples because they need to identify bank robbers, apparently.
Wow.
As they make getaways. Yeah, it's bizarre. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I was told. But we were at a stoplight in Naples, and this guy on a GSXR 1000, fully decked out in a Rizla, a race decals, just boosts a wheelie off the line. Right there, catwalks the bike. I'm like, okay, we're in Naples. This is how we do it.
Yeah.
So anyways, we make it out to Sorrento. We stay our night, and leaving Sorrento was really great, by the way. Great place to stay. We left Sorrento to make our way to Matera, and we took the autostrada out of there, but then we started taking back roads because Matera's it's not on a main drag anywhere. Like you kind of have to take back roads to get there. And man, we navigated by the map, and we just took our time, and man, it was amazing. Like, it was such a really good experience. So we ended up in Matera, which is a whole different story. I'm not going to get into it here on the podcast, because I could go on and on. It was amazing. Well, I will.
Okay.
I will give one anecdote. Actually, it was really funny. So we had a location for the hotel we were supposed to stay in, and so we followed the directions, and we ended up in this like courtyard for this church. It's on this hilltop. So there's an old part of the Matera, and there's the newer part. The old part is where we were staying. So this is church. I'm like, there's nothing here. So I told Sam, I'm going to park the bike. I'm going to walk around and see if I can find it. So I go around back to the church, and there's this path that goes down the hill behind the church. And so I walk down the hill, and I kind of see a sign for the hotel we're staying in, but it's like this entrance to this like cave. There's like a door, but it's like it's like a cave. And I'm like, okay. But I knew that's kind of where we were staying. So I go in there and I talk to the owner. And I go, hey man, we just arrived on a bike. We're up at the church. Like, how do we get here? And he's like, oh, okay. You're gonna go. You have to take there's a ring road around town. You have to take it either one way or the other, and it'll get you down here. I'm like, okay, great. So we do that. Go back to Sandra. Like, I got to figure it out. We just need to go around this ring road. So we go. And as we get down there, we get to the turnoff to get down to where we need to go. And there's a cop there. And it's like, nope, can't come down here. And I'm like, why not? It's like, no traffic down here after 3 p.m. And I'm like, but our hotel is down there. Nope, can't do it. Welcome to Italy. And I'm like, oh, son of a bitch. So
Just pull over, grab a glass of wine, and wait till tomorrow.
So I'm like, I'm trying to reason with her, and she's just like having none of it. So I'm like, okay. So we go back where we were. I walk back down to the hotel. I go, cop won't let us down. He goes, okay, this is what you do. Go the other way down the ring road, and you're going to run into another police officer. When you get to that police officer, don't speak Italian, speak English, and act stupid. He'll let you through. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, if you have any problems, just come back. Whenever. Sure. So get back to the bike. Tell Sandra. She's like, okay. I'm like, no Italian. It's, be American or whatever. Sorry, my American friends. But anyway, so we do that. We get to sure enough, we go around the other way. We get to this guy. And he's telling us in Italian, no, you can't go down there and pass through. I'm like, I need to get to my hotel to check in. Like, I'm being really obnoxious, like stupid, like, being a dummy. And he kind of looks at us and goes, okay, just go. Like, just go.
It worked.
It worked, totally. Awesome. And so we pull up in the hotel and we check in and we see the owner again. And he's like, did it work? And I go, yeah. He goes, I know my chickens.
Awesome.
But yeah, so we stayed there, had a wicked time. And then we booked it north back to Simona to meet our friends for Easter. And that portion of the journey was one of the more interesting parts because I had no idea how to get there from where we were. We just navigated by the map book. And so we would, I-92 or whatever the road was, we would take that to, whatever junction. And then we would stop and we would look, hey, what's the next one? And what's the next one? What looks more interesting? Ooh, that town looks cool. And that was the thing about that's the ADV side of it, right? Is like you have a loose itinerary or no itinerary, and you kind of just figure it out as you go.
Yeah. And
you do what is interesting and what's appealing to you, and then you just go for a ride.
That's the nice thing about the GPSs. The maps are great, and I made a living on selling maps for a while, and so I have nothing against them. But the idea of a GPS, this is where we have to go, and you pin it, and then, okay, so there's 3 different routes, and that one route that's way off kilter is the one you want to take, or, I love that about the GPS. Or you're in the middle of somewhere and you think, I don't think this is where I'm supposed to be. And you can say, okay, this is where I eventually want to get to. That GPS will guide you through that.
Yeah.
Sometimes to a lake. I've done that before.
Yeah.
But
so we were up here for something with Ryan Carmen and the lads. And I can't remember what we were doing. But we were down in West Lacoon,
Yep.
and it was getting late, and we just wanted to get back as quickly as possible. And Ryan was like, "Oh well, we can just tell the GPS to take back roads all the way back."
Mm-hmm.
So we don't
Shortest route, back roads, no highways.
Yeah.
Yep.
Whatever. Like yeah. And
actually, that blew my mind because he led, or you guys led, or whatever.
Were you with us?
I was, yeah.
When he went down,
Yeah.
real brief, yeah, okay.
And the cool thing was, I live in this area,
Yeah.
and a lot of the roads we took that GPS told us,
Yeah, it was fun.
I had no idea they connected.
There were some great roads we were on.
Great roads, and I've been on a lot of them, but never connected them in the way to get back here.
Yep,
so
that was cool.
That was for a GPS. That was definitely new to me. Thought, oh yeah, that's the way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just being comfortable on a bike that's capable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, dirt bikes are wicked, but they're fucking uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, they
you
are.
don't want to ride on them. Like, if you're standing and if you're going through single track and whatever, yeah, fine, whatever. Like, you're more concerned about maneuvering the motorcycle than being comfortable.
Yeah.
But as soon as you get on
a high-speed gravel road,
or even road, like if you got like a blue-plated bike or whatever, like life starts sucking real quick, because it's like, especially if you've been riding all day, like you just like, you're kind of leaning off one ass cheek.
Yeah.
You're finding all these weird riding positions to kind of make it more comfortable.
I think the day that we talking about the Ryan Carmen GPS thing, I think it was on my old Husqvarna.
That's right.
If
Yeah,
I'm not mistaken. And
yeah,
that's a long ride.
Yeah, it was a long ride.
Coming back on a dirt bike, 450 dirt bike.
Yeah. Well, I mean, speaking of, so maybe we can transition into, not that we're authorities on the matter, but some of the preferred mods and, add-ons for your adventure bike. Mm-hmm. Maybe before we get into that, maybe let's talk about some of the adventure bikes that are on the market today, because we've had some experience with quite a few of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe let's go into, what, if anything, you would or should add to it, depending on what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I know for me, we've already talked about the 990 Adventure, so I've owned that. Amazing bike.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing bad to say about it. It's other than you should upgrade your seat. The seat's not bad, but it's not great. You put a comfy seat on that, dude.
It's pretty well a big dirt bike seat, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And the other thing too is it's actually doesn't have the biggest fuel tank in the world. That was the other thing that was weird. Mm-hmm. But other than that, it was amazing. And then 690, or not 690, 640. Went to the 640 because I thought that was the way to go. Because I had the fairing, kind of 640 Adventure had the fairing on it. And I just wanted that wind protection, but the light bulbs were dimmer than a candle. Mm-hmm. But again, Ryan Carmen.
Yep.
There's a theme here.
Yep.
That lad did his research, and we got a HID upgrade on those headlights, which is amazing. It's dirt cheap. Like, it was dirt cheap. And like night into day, like really bright.
Yeah.
And then
does he still have his?
I think he still has a 640. Yeah.
Okay.
And then from there I went down to the 650, but then started getting into dirt bikes. But then I also bought my 690.
Yeah.
Which was, I had the longest, and really loved the 690's capability. What I loved about the 690 was, if you only have one bike, that's the bike. It can do almost anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't do long highway too well.
You did it.
You could.
Yeah.
You're not going to love life.
Yeah.
But you could.
Yeah.
I mean, I went to Saskatchewan and back on that bad boy, and it was a hard haul, but it did it. Mm-hmm. The 690 was a great bike. I miss it in a lot of ways. For you've gone through which ADV type bikes?
I think really I've only done the Suzuki V-Strom.
Yep.
And KTM 1090.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two I really had. I mean, I've had blue plated. I have my Beta 390 blue plated, which some would consider an ADV bike.
Light.
Light.
ADV light.
and my Husqvarna 449, which would be similar. But those are the only two real adventure bikes I've had.
Well, your Husqvarna, I mean, that's in the same vein as a 500 EXC.
It is.
I mean, there's guys that have traveled the world on a 500 EXC.
Yep.
So it's doable.
It is. But the 1090 is by far. So the reason I have one, we can blame Darren Rideout.
Oh, 100%.
100%.
Blame him for a lot of things.
We do. Yeah, I had the V-Strom at the time, and I was actually humming and hawing over Honda.
Oh, the Africa Twin.
Africa Twin.
Yeah.
Remember, there was one at Pete's, and I loved it, and it was a really nice looking bike, and I took it for a test ride, and then Darren Rideout left his 1090 here, just left it in the man cave, and said, "Hey, ride it whenever you want." So I took it for a ride, and that was the end of that.
Yeah.
As soon as I rode that bike, I knew that was the bike I had to have. And the Honda Africa Twin is a beautiful bike.
Oh, it is. 100%.
I would have bought that. The only reason I didn't is I think that I wanted a bike more geared for the off-road stuff. And with the 1090, it really did set that apart. Like the Africa Twin did it, and it was surprising how well it did it. And I think if I was, a 50-50 kind of guy, the Africa Twin is a perfect bike. It does everything very, very well.
You know what bike I'd like to try that's come on the market recently is the Yamaha Tenere.
Yeah.
It
looks like a great
Paul
bike.
Terrace is doing some pretty impressive stuff with those things. And yeah, don't get me wrong, I'm sure he's got his suspension completely dialed in and he's got all this shit done to it. But it's a really cool looking bike.
It's a capable bike, yeah.
And our friend Lawrence has put some miles on those, and
he loves it.
He thinks they're great. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think the answer to that conundrum, like whenever, like, what's the best bike? It's like, well, whatever makes you happy, right?
Yeah.
Whatever makes you smile is the one for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because when it comes to ADV bikes, it's kind of like dirt bikes. Whether it's a Sherco, a Beta, a KTM,
They're all great.
they're all great. They're all the same. The factories have done countless
Yeah.
hours of research. They've all dialed their bikes in. Yeah, okay, each one has their quirks. Some have some weak points here and there, but generally speaking, there's literally thousands of each of those bikes running around at any one time, no issues.
Yep.
And people are rocking it.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
yeah, fuck, you like blue today? Great, go buy a Sherco.
Yep.
You like red? Great, Beta.
And this year I love the KTM 1090.
There you go.
Maybe it could change in the future, but I've had good luck, and I've ridden with a few guys that have the same bike, and it's a nice bike for our riding style.
It's actually, it brings me to something I've often thought about. It's the ethos or the kind of idea behind each of those adventure bikes, right? Like, what's the idea behind those, like the manufacturer's intent for those bikes, right? So you look at a KLR 650, the intent is it's inexpensive. It can be fixed with baling wire and a safety pin, and it's,
You can pick up the parts at Canadian Tire.
yeah, like literally, like the bike is, it's relatively bomb proof. I mean, it'll shake itself apart, but like I said, you can fix it with anything, right?
Yep.
Which is great. Heavy, low on power, but it's a tractor.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not worried about going fast, that's the bike, right? You just need to do miles.
Yep.
And have the ability to fix it with anything, anywhere. That's the bike you want.
Mm-hmm.
KTM, on the other hand, has always been about performance, right? Like, they got that race pedigree through Dakar and desert racing. And that's kind of where their adventure bikes come from anyways, right? I mean, like the 990 Adventure, I mean, that has Dakar pedigree.
Mm-hmm.
And or the 950 rather, which turned into the 990.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of went from there. So you look at how they make their bikes now, and that is the focus. It's the go anywhere bike, but it's also performing at that high level at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the 890 now. I mean, we have friends who are running that bike now, and it is literally unstoppable.
Yeah.
You could do anything with that bike.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. I would like to try it one day.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having a go. I think when I know they don't make the 1090s anymore, and the reason why I wanted a 1090, we actually had to find one because they're kind of getting hard to find. But my wife still likes to go on the back, and and for me, it was really great to have that compromise where I can ride that bike, take it off road, take it on road, take it gravel roads, and then I have panniers that go on it and throw my wife on it, and we can do a weekend trip or a week away on it. So that's kind of why I was geared towards that. At the time when I bought that bike, they had the 790, which was in its place a great bike too. But for me, I just didn't think that if I wanted to ride across Canada with my wife on the back, it was the right bike.
Yeah.
Where the 1090, I think, could do that as well.
No, that's a good point. I was also thinking the exact same thing when I was looking for mine. I'd sold the 690, got into the enduro world heavily, but was always wanting that ability to, do a bike trip with, Sandra on the back or whatever. I ended up buying a Ducati Scrambler. A, because it's a fucking cool bike.
Very cool.
But also B, I figured, well, it should be relatively two-up friendly. Well, if your girlfriend weighs less than 100 pounds and is, 4 to 5.5 feet tall,
right,
awesome. You're good.
Yeah.
But if your wife is, pushing
6 feet tall,
pushing 6 feet,
yeah, which sure both of our wives are.
Yeah, they're not so much.
Yeah, no.
And I found the rear suspension on that bike just wasn't able to handle that. And just riding around town, like we would hit speed bumps every once in a while, or just bumpy roads, and we'd be bottoming it out a little bit, which I didn't like. So, anyways, I ended up getting rid of that at some point, and I've always been super impressed with the capabilities of that 1090. You got one, which made me super jealous.
Yep.
And I was like, fuck
That's
that.
what started it.
I can't let Milne get away with this. So I also had to get one.
Yeah. And who are we kidding? How do we sell it to our wives? Well, listen, the back seat on this is very comfortable.
Exactly.
Right? So we need one.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And just, it's like, I knew it was capable, but I didn't, I have, like I said, 990, rode that, knew it was just a big dirt bike.
Yeah.
Rideouts put some miles on the 1090, kind of echoed the same thing. I got to be honest, I remember when he was up here years ago, when he broke his arm that one time, I remember moving his 690, or his 1090, and just, riding it from the man cave to the cottage he was staying in.
Yeah.
And I just remember going, oh my God, it's so heavy.
Yeah.
Are you crazy? This bike is ridiculously heavy. But having spent some time on our bikes, that goes away real quick.
It does. As soon as you're on the pegs,
Yeah.
the weight goes away.
And it is a really fun motorcycle.
Yeah.
Really fun.
Yeah, the thing, in this, it sounds crazy, but the thing I really like about the 1090 the most is that even stock pipes, I haven't done anything different to my bike.
Oh, it's still growly.
It sounds like it wants to kill you.
Yep.
And that's kind of the excitement of it. At any time, it has this really great growl that, it's a very peppy bike. And when you're on the right conditions and that front end's off the ground and you're, that bike is exactly in a place.
We never do that.
In a closed circuit.
Yeah, closed circuit, we do that.
We
sometimes.
do that, yeah. That's what I meant.
Yeah. We did Dacre on those things. So Dacre is it's a lot of miles.
It's a big day.
It's a big day. And one of the things I loved about being on the big bikes versus being on the enduro bikes was I knew I wasn't going to be suffering too much when we had to cover some miles. So you're doing the trails, whatever. But, after 10 hours of riding and you hit a long section on the road to make up time, like we did, right? So we did our section, and then Lee was like, you need to get back here, blah, blah, blah. So we did that, and it was a long haul. But
On those bikes.
On those bikes,
yeah.
it wasn't such a bad place to be. Like, it was okay.
At 4 o'clock in the morning when we started, or 5 o'clock in the morning when we started, and it was cold, and you put the heated grips on, that helped too, right?
Ooh, yes, heated grips. Yeah, for sure. Actually, good point. So, excellent segue.
Yeah.
So we've had a little bit of a chat about some of the different bikes that are out there. Not that we're aficionados on it, but
We talked mostly about the bikes we've had. That's
yes.
about it. Yeah.
Well, that's what we got experience with.
Sure.
But let's talk about some of the mods that are really popular with adventure bikes. So we mentioned heated grips. So the key here is to make your life less miserable on the journey. So what are some of the things you can do to do that? So heated grips are one. And I don't know, I kind of was on the fence early, like back in the day, about heated grips. I always thought it was a bit like, well, really? You need that? But no, you need it.
Oh, that's great.
You need it.
Yeah.
It's good. It's a
Yeah.
good thing.
It is. You know, there's only probably 5 times a year I use them. But when you
need them, you need them.
that's great.
Yeah.
If your hands get cold, the rest of your body starts getting cold.
And it extends your season.
It does.
It extends your
absolutely.
season, and it extends your riding time. So, or your ability to ride through. Like if you're, okay, yeah, we're talking about season here. Like we're not going anywhere, just riding around here. But if you're talking about riding long distance, well, if you got to take that high mountain pass,
Yep.
and it's going to be shitty weather,
0 degrees.
you'll be fine.
Yep. Yeah. So I guess the mods on my bike are heated grips. There's a sergeant seat, which is, in my opinion, a beautiful thing. I know it sounds like I'm an old man, but it's a great seat, and it works well. I can sit on the thing all day long. My wife can sit on the back all day long. Larger foot pegs and aggressive tires, you know.
Yeah.
I think that's, I mean, there's a few other little mods here and there, but, handlebar, there's
Well, so
guards and stuff.
yeah, I would. Here's my take on what I think. If you're going to do a trip, if you're going to do any sort of long distance riding, especially if you're going to tackle some of the off-road stuff, here's where I think your money is best spent. So definitely heated grips are up there. A comfortable seat, more comfortable than the stock, depending on the person, right? Some people can make do with the stock seat just fine.
Yep.
But it makes a difference. I mean, if you have a long ride ahead of you, how we can look at it two ways. We can look at safety and longevity. So how safe are you if you're comfortable on your bike? You're very safe. You're alert, you're conscious, you're aware. But if you're exhausted because you've been uncomfortable for 10 hours straight,
Oh, you're
you're
distracted.
destroyed and you're distracted.
Yeah.
Longevity. If you're comfortable, you can ride longer.
Yep.
You can get to where you need to go sooner and better, right? Like it's a no-brainer. So that comfortable seat, although it may seem a little soft to some, it makes sense.
Yeah.
In when you look at it long distance wise.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. Most bikes don't come with good panniers, right?
No.
Good rack systems. So if you're going to be carrying luggage, you need that.
Yeah.
Hard luggage versus soft luggage, that's personal preference.
And it's what you're doing.
It's what you're
where
doing.
you're riding and how
I
you're
mean,
doing. Yeah.
I've had both. I would say that hard luggage is great until you need to squeeze through traffic. And then it
Or
sucks.
if you go down and you have hard luggage, sometimes your leg gets pinned. You know, I have hard luggage and I love them, but I only put them on when we're doing big rides, highway mostly. You know, if I know I'm going to do a lot of off-road stuff, it's a different story. Like a soft bag, if you go down, it's not going to pin your leg under it. You know, that's
Yeah.
one thing that I've learned about that. And I had it on the V-Strum, and one time my leg got pinned underneath one of those hard bags, and it's not comfortable. So that's one thing to consider.
Yeah, I mean it's a 6 of one, half dozen the other situation, I guess. Especially if you're traveling. I mean, the hard cases offer that security aspect, hard to break into.
Yep.
But where you have soft luggage, I don't know. I've used the Magadan panniers from Adventure Spec, and they've been amazing. They've been really great, and I used them when I went out to Saskatchewan and back. I rode highway all the way out there, and I took the TCAT, the Trans-Canada Adventure Trail, all the way through Saskatchewan. On that TCAT section, man, like, I hit some mud patches. I went down. One of them was pretty gnarly.
Mm-hmm.
Not a goddamn scratch on those things, man.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
They're really, really good. Lighting.
Yeah, that's another one. We both added lighting.
Yeah, lighting's a big one. I don't know what it is about manufacturers and their lighting, but man, okay, I get it. You got to obey whatever homologation rules there are to bring the bike in, but at least offer it as an option.
I think it's a styling. Like most headlights are a certain size, and
I know, but
I think that's part of it. But
like, look at Cyclops, right? Like, you have that Cyclops like bulb that system you can put in your ADV bike, which is another great mod. Had that in almost every ADV bike I own, and huge difference. So yeah, I don't know. Lighting, heated grips, big one, soft, good seat,
and tires.
Tires.
Yeah.
Well, tires is a tricky one, right?
It is. It's your riding style. It's where you want to ride, and longevity. I mean, if you're gonna do some off-road but mostly highway, you're gonna burn through a pretty aggressive tire quickly.
Yeah, that happened to me on my Saskatchewan trip. So I mean, at the time, like I went out there with the tires I had on the bike, which were Dunlop 606s.
Mm-hmm.
Great off-road tires, especially on the 690, but they got destroyed.
Yeah.
By the time I got to Saskatchewan, it was a slick. There's nothing left on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I managed to find the same tire in Saskatchewan at a local dealer, so I put that back on the rear. The front was actually okay. It wasn't that bad. But anyways, yeah, I ran that home, and on the off-road stuff, it was amazing. Mm-hmm. But on the highway, it sucked. Had I had something a little more 50-50 friendly, like a TKC 80,
yeah,
I hate that tire in the mud.
Yeah.
But if you're going to be dry, dusty back roads and pavement,
works good.
There's no better tire, in my opinion. It's a really good tire for that. Having the right tire for the right job.
Yeah.
Is, but I mean, that's like any bike, really.
It is. And you really need to research the tire manufacturer, the tire style before you because there's so many out there.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just say, oh, this is the best tire.
Yep.
It doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't.
So I have, right now I'm running, I think, the Kenda Big block on the back and some Moto Z Tractionator on the front. I don't even remember. And it's a good combination. The front tire doesn't work great in sand, and that works good. And what do you have on your bike?
So tire-wise?
Yeah.
I think I have a Metis.
You have Metis
on the
back
front
too, don't you?
No, yeah, you're right. I definitely have the Metis on the back. So I think I have the 09 on the back.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the front, yeah, I can't remember what I have on the front. It's either a Metis or
I don't remember either.
something very similar.
You wanted something for Dacre and you got it all prepped.
It's relatively aggressive.
Yeah.
But I've been impressed with them both.
Mm-hmm.
That Metis rear was really been great.
Yeah.
The other thing I was thinking of too, in terms of mods that are good to put on, especially for adventure bikes and long distance riding, are auxiliary plugins, like for accessories.
Mm-hmm.
So you can, for a heated jacket or USB charging for your devices, so you can charge them as you ride.
Right.
That's becoming more and more necessary.
Yep. GoPros
these days. Yeah, GoPros, phones, everything. 5 years ago, that was just kind of the thing you did, but it was more coming from that accessory jack for your GPS or your heated gear. And now, because of the prevalence of devices and the gear you have and whatnot, it's just a handy charging opportunity for stuff you have.
Yeah.
So while you're riding, you can charge all your shit up.
Yeah. I don't have this bike set up, but my V-Strom, I had a tank bag, and in the tank bag I had a charging system in there. So I put my phone, my GoPro, anything else, it could charge right in there, and it was out of the elements, and it was actually a nice little system.
Yeah, actually, good call on the tank bag. That's something that some folks might overlook. Mm-hmm. And when we rented when we did the north of Italy, we rented a Multistrada in Milan, and that bike had a tank bag. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, I don't know if I want this on there. I might take it off. but I didn't. I left it on with the idea that I was going to stuff it in a pannier later or something like that. But man, it was
so handy.
It was amazing. It was
Yeah.
super handy.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't believe, it was just like having everything right there. Like,
Yeah.
you didn't have to get off the bike. It was just there.
Yeah.
It was really good.
The only time they are a negative is when you're trying to stand. I had that on my V-Strom. It was always in the way. So
right.
if you're not being aggressive off-roading, standing, they're awesome. If you're gonna stand, I'm not a fan of them.
No, that's also a good point.
Yeah.
Not a lot of standing on the Multistrada.
No.
Especially the older versions. It wasn't.
And when your wife's on the back and your ass is in her face,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, not much standing.
But even just the ergonomics of that motorcycle were
Yeah.
not conducive to standing. It was a funny one that way. But there was a dude who brought a Multistrada to Dacre.
Yeah,
The year we did it.
yeah, he did.
Fucking champion.
Yep.
Actually, he's part of the Wolf Enduro crew, I think.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or either is he that or Revzilla? One or the other. He's
Yeah,
part of that.
Revzilla.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
the Revzilla guys.
Yeah.
But yeah,
No windshield.
Oh, dude, he rocked it though.
He did,
He
yeah.
was a savage, that guy.
Yeah.
And he wasn't a big dude. He was a bit of a rail.
Yeah,
But he rode that bike like a champ.
good on him.
But yeah, plugins for accessories is a big one for adventure bikes and,
Yeah,
and long
especially
distance
long
touring.
distance. Yeah.
Yep. Speaking of navigation, so we've talked about different forms of navigation, but I don't know. I think there's still a place for that paper map.
I always carry one.
Like
I have the GPS mount on mine, and in the back bag, I always have one of those back roads map. And that's my go-to. Even, you can zoom in, zoom out, but to look at a big, broader section of it,
Yeah.
I always pull back the map and say, "Hey, I'm here. I just want to get that way." And then you can use the GPS from that.
right.
Say I want to get to this town or whatever.
Oh, it's night and day, and that's why I still have that map book that I bought in Italy to this day. Like it's such a reference.
Yeah.
Like just to be able to go, like you say, like spread it out.
Yeah.
And go, okay, we're here. We need to get here. What do we got? Oh, ooh, this road looks greater. Ooh, look, that's a direct route. We're short on time.
Or even at the end of the day, if you're with a bunch of guys and you lay a map out on a table and say, "Where do you want to go tomorrow?"
Yeah.
How
Exactly.
great is that, right?
Yep.
Instead of huddling around a little GPS and trying to figure that out.
It's so retarded.
Yeah. So there is a place for a map for sure. I am a big map guy. I'm getting onto the GPS side of it pretty well, but I still love a map.
Oh yeah, same here. I
Yeah.
mean, like, don't get me wrong. Like the GPS is, it's almost a necessity these days.
Yeah.
Where the GPS comes into play, for us, as the way we normally use them is we have predetermined routes, so they're kind of a necessity.
Yeah.
GPS guided routes.
Yeah.
From an ADV perspective, especially when you're traveling, I think it has two benefits. Number one, it has a safety benefit, right? Because you always kind of have an idea. As long as you have the right map set on your GPS, you know where you are. So there's safety in that. There's some reassurance in that.
Or to the next gas station.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If it's marked, right? They're not always marked, especially if you're in a different country. But having a paper map, the two complement each other,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, let's talk about our best adventure ride on our bikes. What was yours?
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, it's a toss-up between northern Italy and my ride out to Saskatchewan. It's kind of a tie, and the reason it's a tie is on sheer epic awesomeness for what was seen and experienced. The northern Italy one is by far the winner, but what made the trip out to Saskatchewan equally awesome was it was an adventure. Like there was some serious adversity. So going out there, I left Ontario late May, so it was pretty early in the season, and if I froze all the way to Sault Ste. Marie. Oddly enough, it got warm up there. I crossed over to the States, and it was like 25 degrees. It was amazing. And then the next day I rode out, and it was okay for a little bit, but then it got cold again. And I froze pretty much all the way to the border of Saskatchewan and North Dakota or whatever that is. And, but it was just, you know, you go through all these small towns and you kind of don't know where you are half the time. And you just know you got to follow this road and you're kind of doing it. I don't know, like you come up to all these characters like Tim Hortons in Estevan, Saskatchewan, which is right off the border. Like, I'm just sitting there having a break, having a coffee, and this dude rolls up on this rat bobber bike, like wicked cool bike. This dude, and he's like, starts chatting me up, like, hey man, what's up? You know, telling me his life story and what he's doing there and how cool it is. Like, you know, we just started exchanging stories, and it was really interesting meeting that dude. And then, so did what I had to do in Saskatchewan, and then heading back, like, you know, had a great time on the Trans-Canada Adventure Trail, you know, off-roading. And it was really interesting because Saskatchewan is, you know, I'd only flown in there before. There's almost no trees in Saskatchewan. And some folks would go, well, that might be boring to ride through. Well, on the Trans-Canada Adventure Trail, it's not that boring because it sends you through all these valleys. And you could be anywhere. Like, these valleys could be in, you know, Yosemite Park or wherever, like minus the huge mountain backdrops, like it looks similar. And you kind of go in through all, like, it's very twisty, and you get these amazing roads, man. You can just open up and just ride the piss out of them. They're amazing. And then you get to like a farm field, this like huge farm field. As far as you can see, it's a farm field, and there's a trail that you will follow through this farm field.
Through the field.
Yeah, and it's just like it skirts the edges, right? And then you get to another road, and you keep going. And it just keeps doing this for miles and miles and miles. And then it was really interesting, I got to this road, and, you know, go up and over this hill, and it's completely flooded out. Like, it's this little dip, this little valley. There's a house on the other side, but between me and the house, there is like a huge river. The road's gone. And I'm like, oh, shit, what do we do now? So I look at the GPS, and I'm like, well, it's a grid system, so I'll go over to the next concession and see if I can get over there. Sure enough, I could get over that way and then get back on the trail and then just keep going. And, you know, it's these little, you know, you come up with these little adventures, right? Like, you come up with these obstacles, and then you go, oh, how do I get around this? Well, I got to do this. And it's like, so, you know, and at the time, it might seem inconvenient, but it's also like, it's problem solving. Yeah. You know, and then you're like, oh, that was cool. Yeah. So anyways, fast forward, weather was crappy all the way through Manitoba, and I get to Ontario and ended up skipping all the TCAT through there because it was, you know, weather wasn't great. And I just made a call that day. It said, you know, looked at the weather. It was like -1, -2 north of Superior, chances of snow. So I'm like, I'm not riding through that. So I went south through the States and ended up going through before I hit the States, which is really funny. I was pretty worn out from all the rain I was hitting, and I got pulled over right before the border by the OPP, and I was like, I saw him coming. I was like one of those things where you know you're going to get pulled over. So I pulled over right away, took my helmet off, parked the bike. He turns around, rolls up on me, and he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, why? He's like, you don't look so great. And I'm like, well, I'm a little cold and wet, sir. Like, got to be honest. And he's like, where are you coming from? I'm like, Saskatchewan. He's like, where are you going? Ottawa. He's like, whoa, Jesus. He's like, okay, well.
Bit of a gap.
You got your license, reg? I'm like, yeah, here you go. He's like, I'll be right back. Comes back. He's like, listen, man, there's no more radar between here and the States. FYI.
Thank you.
Just be careful. I'm like, yep, no problem. And so hats off to that amazing officer. He was very friendly. He cut me a break. Anyways, get to Wisconsin, and I rode through 2 tornadoes. So running through a storm, and I was like, wow, this storm's getting crazy. So I pull over under an underpass and hang out for a little bit. And then I'm like, wow, it's not getting any easier. I just better just keep going. So I kept going. I ended up coming out the other side and pull over for gas. I go in there, and I'm like dripping water on the floor as I'm lining up to pay for gas inside. And there's a paramedic in front of me paying for his gas, chatting to the teller. And he's like, yeah, it was a crazy tornado just rolled through. Oh my God. Blah, blah. And I'm like, I pipe up. I'm like, yeah, I just rode through that. And they both stop, turn around, look at me, and paramedic's like, you okay? I said, yeah, I'm fine. He's like, geez, that's pretty crazy. I was like, yeah, it was nuts. So I pay for my gas, go on my way. And shortly thereafter, I'm on the highway, and for the first time, and as long as I can remember, I'm like, oh, I'm warm. How nice is this? Oh. This is beautiful. I'm like, oh, like I'm pulling up my visor, and I got this nice warm air coming into my helmet, and I'm like, oh my God. And then just twigs, I'm like, wait a minute. I was fucking freezing 20 minutes ago, and all of a sudden it's 30 degrees. Something ain't right. And I'm looking around. I'm looking around for that. I'm like, sure enough, I look off to the right, and there's just a massive front coming in. Like, it's as dark as the night. Mm-hmm. This is like 5:30 in the afternoon, and it's coming. I could see it, but I could see the edge. I could see the far edge of it. So I'm like, I can make this. So I dropped a gear, and I just, tucked in, and I pinned her, and I was like going as fast as I dared, with the panniers on the bike, and I'm pushing, and it just steamrolls me. Like that day is night, and it's like torrential rain, like sideways rain, and it's like blowing me all over the road. Almost going to the side of a semi a couple times, and I'm like, okay, man, I need to get off of here. So I get off the highway, hide under an underpass for a little bit. This car pulls up. It's like, hey man, you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm just waiting to storm out. And he's like, hey man, there's like a town 5 minutes down the road. If you can make it, there's hotels and stuff there. You should probably go there. I was like, roger that. Thanks, man. So that's what I did. And stayed there the night. And then after that, it was fine. I ended up making it back to Canada through Chicago, Detroit. And going through Whitby, stopped in at GP Bikes to get some oil for the 690 because it was burning.
I bet.
And I was wearing one of them KTM suits, which was garbage. Like, no offense, KTM, but that one was a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And then GP Bikes had the Climb Badlands jacket, KTM branded Climb Badlands jacket. So I was like, hey man, what's the best price you can do on that jacket? And the guy went, I don't know, let me see. So he gave me a good price, and I said, if it'll fit on this credit card, I'll take it. And I still have that jacket to this day.
It's a good jacket.
Oh man.
Yeah, I just recently picked one up. Actually, thank you, Lawrence Hacking.
Yep. But that was my most memorable / best trip on a bike for ADV stuff for sure.
I haven't had any long trips besides my Ecuador bit. I think my most memorable bits have been, I would say, 2 times this past summer. One, a buddy of mine, Chris Lund, who stayed at Sunny Hill lots with his buddies. I took him out on a really great ride just locally here. And we saw some caves, but the riding was great. I took them out, and it was a very spirited ride, and great riders. I took them to Craigmount Mines. I took them through Calabogie, and
that's Jeff Pilon's buddies, eh?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. That man's everywhere. Anyway,
he's gonna walk in this door right now. Watch.
Yeah. No, not yet. But anyway, we had a really great time, and those boys, at the end of the day, really loved it. So I remember that was a really high moment for me. And then I think doing the Daker with you, that was, man, we had a blast.
Yeah, that was a really fun day.
It was just following up on the riders and some of the tracks that Lee put out, and I think, maybe my best bits were those really high speed stuff that we were on.
Some of those dirt roads are just epic.
Gosh, those bikes!
I remember
balanced so well.
Yeah, there's that series of logging roads outside of Griffith that we've ridden a bunch of times
on smaller bikes.
On smaller bikes, but going through from like Calabogie up to here at Sunny Hill. And we've ridden those many times because that's kind of the best way to go to keep off the highway.
Yep.
And man, they're
some good stuff in there.
They're epic every time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was my those are my highlights for sure. I think I've had more for sure. I think riding with you guys the very first time on my V-Strom was a highlight, but those were it. And I think what's our game plan? Like we had talked about maybe doing a big ride, me and you, in September, November next year down to Baja.
Yeah, well, that's definitely on the roster. In terms
Have we told
of
our
planning.
wives yet, or?
Yeah, well, we're
Slowly working them in on that one.
we're working them in. Yeah,
Okay.
we're working up to that. They know it's on the honey-do list.
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, we're planning that for sure. We'd like to ride from here at Sunny Hill all the way down to San Jose del Cabo, which is where Rideout has his place.
Yep.
And it's a huge trip. It's a really big trip. Most guys truck their bikes down to the border and will ride from there. But we're not pussies, man. We're just gonna make it.
Well, we say that now, but we could very well be pussies. No, I think for me, it's the idea of once this place closes down, once Sunny Hill, once the season is over, we can jump on the bikes, me and you.
Yeah.
Ride down, we'll ride across, and I think you have a few ideas of what we'll do, but we'll ride across Canada and the US, get to Ensenada, hopefully pick up Rideout. He has a bike in Ensenada.
Yeah.
And ride right down to San Jose. What a amazing way to finish off the season.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, most guys who are like, not to speak derogatorily about the folks that drive down and then ride from the border. I mean, they're on dirt bikes at that point, right?
Yeah.
Which is, it's no mean feat.
No.
The top of Baja down to the bottom is the
huge.
length of the United States.
Yeah.
Like it's not a short hop for sure. So not taking anything away from those guys. But I just think it would be an epic adventure, and there's a lot of opportunity, I think, for us as what we're doing here for the podcast and what we're doing as Valley Rally along the way. If you're listening, there's a lot of folks we'd like to stop in and see. Wolf Enduro guys, Upshift Online. There's Fieldcraft Survival out in Utah. Hey man, Utah's fucking pretty beautiful.
Yep.
There is that new Black Rifle coffee shop in Kalispell, Montana, which is just down the way from where we'd probably pick up the BDR.
Yeah.
Just over the Canada border. So what I'm thinking, we have to see, but just off the top of my head, I'm thinking Trans-Canada Adventure Trail out to Jasper area.
Yep.
Or thereabouts. Hit the border south from there. So basically you're getting on the Continental Divide Trail at that point, and then pick up BDR, and then or stay on the CDT. I mean, it depends. We'd have to work it out. I mean, it's probably one and the same for a lot of the part, like most of that, but
Right.
Make our way down, and then we have a bunch of choices after that. Like we can, if we're pressed for time, we can just bomb it down. But if we want to get creative, there's a lot of great spots down there.
Yeah. And it would be, like you said earlier, it'd be great to visit a few people along the way, So maybe that's one thing we should talk about in a future podcast, like what places maybe we want to stop in, not necessarily business-like, but, some businesses that we'd like to stop and see, and maybe some of the sites that we want to see. But maybe in a future podcast, let's talk about what we could do, like the route, and like Canada in itself and US, we have some amazing riding ADV stuff. So
yeah, man. I mean, I'm still working out the time frame that we would need to do it properly.
Yep.
I mean, it might even be, I don't know, we might even have to do it in 2 stages, get down to a certain point, store the bikes, fly home sort of thing, and then fly back and do the rest of the trip. I mean, it's, you have the distance between Sunny Hill and our launch point from Canada into the States is one phase. The entire United States is another.
Yeah.
And then you have Baja.
Yeah.
So there's 3 huge phases. They're equally long. Like
I think what we need to do is start kissing our waves' ass now, and then by the time September, November, December rolls around, we're okay.
Yep. Yeah. So we'll see how that works out. Yeah. We may just have to ride as fast as we possibly can across the United States.
We will be in San Jose in 4 days.
Oh my God. I'll have to crazy glue my legs to the bike.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's going to be a long haul, but what a adventure it'll be.
Yeah, man. If anybody's got any tips or tricks or places that they would recommend along that route somewhere.
Yeah.
So we would be going from, roughly speaking, we would be riding from Barry's Bay, Ontario to Jasper, and then down to either Tijuana or Mexicali or what's the other crossing? One of those 3 crossings on Baja Peninsula, and then we would head south along Baja. Now, for the Baja portion, I mean, we know tons of dudes. I mean, we're pretty sorted once we cross the border into Baja. I think between, Darren and Jeff Pilon and Chris Lund and all those guys, I mean, I think we're Tim Lett and Keith. We've got that covered. But for the States, hey, man, if there's anybody listening, wants to stop in, let us know, man.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll make it happen.
If you have room on your couch, we'll crash on it.
Yeah, I could do that too.
Yep.
Yeah. ADV bikes, man. It's a thing.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's good fun.
Yeah.
It's definitely our friends Ryan and even Mark. They've done some big trips down in the States.
Yeah.
I mean, Joe Emberg, Ryan Carmen, we got Jason Bedborough. Those guys done some trips. Our buddy Mark over there in Denby. He's
in Quadville or Quaidville.
Quaidville.
Yes.
Oh.
Depends on who you ask.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah, no. For me, I'll reiterate that the idea of my adventure bike is my therapy for sure. Like the small bikes are amazing fun, and I love doing all the single track and testing myself. But if I need a moment to myself, there's no better way than jumping on that bike and just riding.
Well, and frankly, there's no better machine for exploration.
There's not.
I mean, a dirt bike will get you into the gnarlier spots, but for everything else, it's sucky.
Sure.
And we took our 1090s into some single track and gnarly single track, and we made it okay.
Yeah.
Hey, man, don't get me wrong. It was work, but the bike did it.
Yeah.
It was capable.
Yeah.
But for everything else,
we may not have been capable, but the bike was.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But for everything else, it was amazing. And hey, man, with the gas prices the way they are, that is my grocery getter.
We'll all be riding bikes.
Now, listen, I'm not joking. Like this summer, instead of taking the truck into town to get groceries and booze, I'll be taking the 1090.
Yep. Buy a set of big panniers. It's cheaper than a tank of gas.
Putting the panniers on there, and we're taking the bike.
Yeah.
It's like, come on. No brainer.
Nope. Sweet.
Okay, well, I think we've argued the case for adventure bikes pretty successfully.
Yeah, don't do it. It's no fun. You won't like it.
No, don't do it. But yeah, if stay tuned, folks. We will give you some more on that Baja stuff as we plan it for sure. We got some good ideas in the works. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, if you have any comments, suggestions, hate mail, you know where to put it.
Yeah.
Drop her in the comments. Let us know. But in the meantime, hope you enjoyed it.
Cheers.
This is what the aftermath of FML looks like.
Where's the easy button?